Give him a raise and it makes us look better.
Okay, we'll call the meeting.
All right, enough of that executive over there.
July 17th, 6 o'clock, meeting to order. Please rise for the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I understand Bob has an announcement, public announcement.
I just have one. The Board of Health will be asking the citizens of the town to cooperate in removing all plastics from our recycle bins, which means any of those little plastic bags that we get from the stores or any green plastic trash bags from our recycle bins. There's a program that they received a grant for to come on that'll be addressed in August and September in the town. And I just thought I'd be proactive and start saying to the public that if it's possible, and please, not possible, but actual, stop using plastic bags in our recycle bins. Ask for paper bags from the stores and use the paper, or just put the stuff in the recycle bins, but please do not put plastic trash bags or plastic bags in the recycle bin. Those bags do some really serious damage to the machinery when they're trying to sort recyclables. So it's very important that we remove the plastic bag component from our recycle bin. Thank you very much.
But other plastics can stay.
All plastics can stay, and on that point, just to say that, I noticed that the town of Braintree noticed that they're doing even more with plastic. So you know those things that people don't want to do with anymore, the little type vehicles and the little plastic pools and everything? They've now established a separate recycle bin at their town area to recycle that plastic, which makes it better than having it left at a food clothing bin that someone can't utilize and stuff like that. So I'm going to ask you to talk to the Board of Health about the plausibility of maybe up in our recycle bin, maybe adding a bin up there for those bigger recyclable plastics to help remove them from the stream also. So
I believe there's a supermarket in town that takes the plastic bags back too.
I believe there is, and I also believe that Lowe's will take plastic bag
Will
bags
they?
too. Yes,
Yeah.
they have a three. As you walk into Lowe's, there's a three collection. They do recyclable batteries. They do those fluorescent bulbs, the smaller ones, and they also do plastic bags. So they'll do it also. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Just because it's summer doesn't mean that the library closes down. I have pages and pages of events that the library is putting on, and it's actually too numerous to mention, but I encourage anybody to go to the abingtonpl.org, their website. They're having July 19th, they're having a theater presentation of Beauty and the Beast. July 21st, they're having a movie event. July 26th, they're having a drumbeat program. It goes on and on and on. So please, and they have a photography contest. It's already started, but photos are on display on Friday, July 29th for teens. And there's also an event for adults, device advice about your Kindle and Nook, that sort of stuff. So please visit the Abington Public Library site to get more information on those. I'd like to make a statement about regarding the Revolutionary Hero Memorial, which is basically the end of the high school road, the little turnabout. On Tuesday with the flag, and there's a plaque on there too. On Tuesday night, July 11th, approximately 11:30, a passenger vehicle that several minutes earlier had been a subject of an aborted police pursuit for speeding and failing to stop at a red light at 58 and 123, had, in an effort to ensure that he evaded Abington police and being unfamiliar with the town of Abington, made his way down Route 18 and down Glenowitz Way, aka the High School Road, not realizing that it's not a throughway. It appears that he tried to make it a throughway by due to excessive speed, his vehicle failed to negotiate the rotary and crashed into the Revolutionary Heroes Bicentennial Memorial. I just wanted to make that everybody aware of it. It had nothing to do with the construction up there. There were no life-threatening injuries. DPW cleaned it up, and I believe we'll probably be seeking the driver's insurance to pay for the taking care of that project. So I just wanted to educate people on that. And as most residents are well aware, and we are surely aware of this, is an agenda gets posted at a certain time on Thursdays, and after that we cannot add anything to the agenda. So over the weekend there was some notes on social media concerning construction at the high school and demolition project. So I had asked the school superintendent to put a little memo addressing some of the concerns over the weekend. So it's very long, and I don't really want to read it. A lot of it has been addressed by Sean Riley on the Facebook. So we're going to post this notice on the Town of Abington website tomorrow morning, if that's all right, and if people have any questions, they can contact the school superintendent, probably the Board of Selectmen's office, or even the, I believe the school building committee has a website too with a lot of pertinent information, so this should hopefully alleviate any concerns that they had. So we can get right into the meeting, if that's all right. We have a 6:05 meeting with Craig Peacock from Powers and Sullivan for a review of the 2016 audit. Craig, welcome. We put you at the very beginning because this is exciting. This is going to keep us awake.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for having me. We're here today to discuss the FY16 audit results. And again, the audit is made up of 3 reports, which are the financial statements, the schedule of expenditures of federal awards, and the management letter. If I may, I'd like to start with the financial statements. I'll sort of give a 30,000-foot overview of the various reports, and if there's any specific questions or we want to drill down on any area, please, we can do so. The audit, again, went very well. The town departments are very receptive to our requests and the information available. Ironically enough, we're here today at Town Hall starting the FY17 audit, and I'm very happy to say the package that was here for us ready to start 17, it's a fabulous package. We work together very well. As far as the report itself, I think the key areas to note are that the town received an unmodified opinion on their financials, which is what you want. That's the best opinion you can receive. There are no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in any of the reports. And again, as I mentioned previously, all of our information requests were met timely, and accurate information was, presented to us right away. There was no waiting or looking for the information type of thing. So as auditors, that tells us that your department heads they have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in their departments. They have the information readily available, and they're involved in the transactions that are occurring. And again, we look at all departments, or a cross-section of all departments each year, with primarily Treasury, accounting, the financial departments are the main focus, and I would suggest that things went very well for the FY16 audit. Again, we go right down the balance sheet, so we 100% audit all of the cash balances of the town, whether it's the town, the OPEB. We pull various selections from the revenue cycle, the expenditure cycle, journal entries, procurement, all the revenue cycle, everything within those cycles, all necessary supporting documentation was available and provided to us timely. All transactions were fully supported and authorized. In fiscal 16, the treasurer's office, or the town, underwent a refunding for their long-term debt, which realistically is like us refinancing our own home, if you will. So we refunded approximately $5 million worth of long-term debt, which is going to present the town with about a $640,000 cash savings over the life of those bonds. So that was a very good transaction, as well as obviously the new school going up. The town issued about $31 million worth of long-term bonds in fiscal 16 related to that project. Your enterprise funds really are operating as designed. They're all pretty much, an enterprise fund is like a little business of its own. It should have rates to cover its own costs, and essentially that is happening. There's small increases and decreases, which is normal. Most of any decrease is the relative to depreciation on capital assets, so it's really a non-cash, but it does go within the financial statement, so that's why you might see a minus in some areas. But budgetarily, your enterprise funds are operating as designed. The fiscal 16, the town put some more money aside in their stabilization fund. We're up to a balance of about $1.4 million as of June 30, 16. We also put some more money into our OPEB trust. which is about 150 grand as of the end of fiscal 16. Now, coming up into fiscal 17, the main change in these financial statements is going to be the implementation of GASB 74, which is very similar. What we just went through a couple of years ago, bringing on the net pension liability. Now we're doing the same thing for the OPEB liability that we've all talked about for many years. However, the what's been recorded in the financials over the years is simply what we would refer to as the delta between the annual required contribution and the pay-as-you-go. So it's been a couple $1,000,000 each year. Now, under the new GASB, similar to recording the full hit of the pension liability, we'll be recording the full hit of the OPEB liability. And that's not just for the town of Abington, that's all Massachusetts communities. Again, we saw great budgetary results for 16. The general fund had a surplus of $1,300,000, which shows that our revenues are still consistently being collected. First year collections, 98, 99%. You can see that in the trend of receivables going down while revenues are going up. At the same time, our expenditures, we've been controlling our costs. You can see the trend of encumbrances and articles over the years have, what I would say is the town accountant's office has been more strict with them as well, and making sure that we're only encumbering funds for true obligations as of June 30th. So as we see that number go down a little, it's all dropping down to your fund balance, your unassigned fund balance. The town's unassigned fund balance as of June 30th has gone up 3 full % from fiscal 15 to fiscal 16 to almost 9% of budget, which is really good, really. I mean, throughout all our clients, people strive for 5 or 6, and suddenly you're getting some funds put aside and getting some fund balance again put aside. So that's a real plus. Debt service currently is conservative at about just under 3% of budget. However, we've had a couple of refundings over the last few years. We did just bring on $31 million of long-term, which principal payments will start, so that percentage is going to increase over the next few years, especially with the school project going on. I'm sure there's going to be other long-term bondings occurring. So, but currently it's about a little under 3% of budget. Again, I mentioned that collections, first-year collections of our real and personal property are consistently 98, 99%. And as part of the budgetary process, again in fiscal 16, the town voted to utilize some free cash savings account, if you will, to balance the budget. Because revenues came in strong, expenditures were controlled. We had, again, I mentioned $1,300,000 surplus. We did not, the need to dip into our pocket and utilize free cash to balance the budget was not required in fiscal 16. So realistically, we had no significant issues in auditing the balance sheet or the P&L of the town of Abington. All information was provided timely and accurately. Looking at the trends, we're seeing the town's ability to control costs and great first, second year collections. Really, we're seeing great trends. You're starting to put some money aside. Projects are going on. When I look back about a 6-year trend, our unassigned fund balance at one point was a negative 0.5% of budget. We're up to almost 9% over, the last, let's call it 7 fiscal years or so. So I think great job to management of the town, your financial offices, the board, and the residents on, how they're voting the budgets and such.
You said 7 years. I've been a selectman for 7 years.
6.
Interesting. No, I want 7. Oh, well, sorry.
That's quite all right.
Love the good news.
We mentioned the OPEB and the STAB fund. That's the 30,000 overview of your financials. There was really nothing inherently negative that either we encountered during our audit or that we see within looking at the trends in the numbers. Really, everything is trending in a positive direction from where we're standing. I can move on to another report, or by all means, if there's any questions on the financials, we can do that.
One question regarding credit risk.
Yes.
I noticed the statement in the report says the town has not adopted a formal policy regarding credit risk. Is that a risk for us?
No, what that is, and so, that has to be, GASB 40 requires us to make those disclosures within the report. And currently, prior to the new treasurer taking over, and your previous treasurer was, conservative with the types of investments and such that the town went into. So as a result, there really wasn't a credit risk policy needed. We weren't staggering a bunch of different bonds and that type of stuff. And with your previous treasurer, when we used to speak about this, he would mention once the town's decision to maybe get a little bit more risky, proactive with investments, then they would work on developing. At that point, I had given them a couple of boilerplate ones from other communities, which I could do again for, current treasury if need be.
Okay.
But because of the types of investments the town is in, it's just a statement of fact based on GASB 40, and it's not an inherently negative statement. And clearly, the town of Abington is not the only one within the state of Massachusetts.
And my other question has to do with bond payable schedules.
Okay.
In looking at the forecasting of where we are with bond schedules.
Yep.
Is there any risk of any potential plausible failure that you guys could see in reviewing those outgoing bonds that would put us, something that maybe we should be aware of or concerned about?
You mean like a cash flow issue
Yeah.
or something?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, currently, I would say no. Currently, again, your debt service principal and interest is slightly under 3% of budget. So you're great, as we mentioned with the school and such, that percentage will be ticking up. But based on what I see in the conservative budgeting and review, I mean, we obviously review and audit the budget each and every year. Currently, I would suggest that there are no attributes jumping out at us that suggest the town is going to have a cash shortfall in near future fiscal years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anybody else have any questions on that report? No. Next.
Okay, so that brings us to the schedule of, we'll do the next one, it's pretty quick. The report on federal award programs. Essentially, this report notates and reports on all federal funds that the town of Abington has expended during fiscal 16, of which there was a little over $2 million spent. Based on the federal regulations of how grants are chosen, we were required to audit the special ed cluster, which accounted for about 25% of the federal awards, the federal dollars spent, of which I'm happy to say the report has also an unmodified opinion, and there are no findings or question costs in that report. So that is essentially a clean report.
Any questions pertaining to the federal awards programs?
No.
No?
Okay, and that leaves us with the management letter. The management letter from fiscal 15 coming into fiscal 16 had 5 comments that were essentially what we call carried forward. Of those 5, 2 being withholding reconciliations and the sewer assessments were completely resolved, and the remaining 3 are in different stages of completion, if you will. There wasn't enough as of June for us to say, yes, it's done and completed, but we've been working together to discuss and essentially come up with a game plan of how to go ahead and resolve those last 3, most of which I would expect would be resolved within fiscal 17. And we had 3 new comments, 2 which are really informational, being the new COSO. The federal government now wants all communities to have an internal control plan to dictate how we handle and expend federal dollars. So that's not only at the school, it's at the town side, because, police, fire, community development, there's federal funds coming in all over the place. That's one's a little tricky plan. I know Masbo had put on a seminar for some of the school officials, because schools generally do receive, a a good piece of the federal funding dollars. However, as an audit firm, we are working currently on a boilerplate that would allow communities to take it from us and address not only the school side, but the town side of this to be able to get rid of that comment. And we hope to have something to roll out to communities in, if I was keeping my foot in the door, I'd say the next month. We've been working on it over the summer. They generally end up being, you know, about a 25-page document or so. And then future GASBs. And future GASBs we were discussing was, I had just mentioned the OPEB liability coming onto the books. That's GASB 74. The town of Abington does in fact have an OPEB trust. Therefore, that brings in GASB 74. In fiscal 19, GASB 75 comes into play, and that's the year in which all communities in Massachusetts will be required to actually record the unfunded liability on your full accrual statements, just as we did the last couple of years for the net pension liability. And other than that, I'm happy to say that the management letter is very clean this year. I can't stress enough the cooperation and the effort that we got by all town officials and department heads that we needed information from and worked with, inclusive of both the school and here at Town Hall. And all I can say is thank you, everybody, for your cooperation, help. Having a great package available for us goes a long way. And the audit went very well. And as I mentioned earlier, we're getting a great start on fiscal 17 just today.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
Today.
Just on the audit of the student activity fund.
Yes.
That's been kind of consistent over the last 3 or 4
Yes,
years.
it has.
Is that
What-
something that's going to finally get addressed this year?
Well, what has to happen, it's twofold. So as I'm sure we're all familiar with student activities in some way, shape, or form, they're kind of the bake sales that occur, or the class of 2017, or there are various class organizations that raise money for costs related to their organization or something related to that student body, if you will. There are some funds that come into student activities that can be used for the general good. If there happens to be, some schools have like soda machine commissions or senior class pictures come into like a principal's account. Really, really quick over the years, those type of accounts have been subject to various errors and irregularities, not here at the town of Abington, but Massachusetts as a whole, so that hence the different audit requirements have been brought up. So what they currently are is that the DESE recommends that at least once every 3 years, an outside organization, an independent audit firm reviews the student activities, and then prior or on the in-between years, someone like your town accountant and/or your school business manager, someone that's not directly involved in the day-to-day operations at the school level can review those. However, what they're supposed to do is, the only part we're really missing out on here is because the indications in the questions that we've asked show that they're being reviewed, they're being looked at. When you speak with school personnel, they're aware. You can tell that they are looking at them because they're not oblivious to the transactions that are occurring. However, upon their review, they're supposed to be putting together a summary report of what we looked at, what we found, any potential follow-ups needed, and when follow-up will be occurring. That's the part that's missing. So realistically, from an audit standpoint, it's not severe. What I mean by that is it doesn't mean there's any error or irregularity occurring. However, what we want to do is just make the town, the board aware that a report isn't being done and we haven't seen them audited on. It could be us, it could be another audit firm. I'm not trying to sell here, simply stating that they should be looked at, they should be audited at least once every 3 years by an independent firm as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? That, the student activity funds must be a problem in a lot of towns.
It's a problem,
Yeah.
and I would suggest if I had to say 75% of our communities, I would not be exaggerating.
There's so many PTOs and different organizations.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, Craig, and if the board has no other comments, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank the town manager and his staff, too. It sounds like they were very cooperative, and they're doing a great job, so thank you.
No, I think an audit is a great tool if you use it. And I think, as you see, over time, a lot of these functions have been cleaned up nicely with the help of Craig and his staff, so thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, we're actually running a
Nice
little
timing.
bit early. Can I take this, do I have to wait till 6:35?
It was an advertised public hearing.
Okay, and the same thing with the 6:41?
No, that one was not.
Is,
Take 6:40. Yeah, well, I don't know if they're here though.
oh, okay. Kristen Zanaboni, request for used article license.
There.
I don't think she's here.
What's Mr. Buckley here for?
Just to stare you down, that's all.
Oh, okay.
And Griffin Ferries Committee is not fully present yet. So we want to do
Go to the
discussion.
minutes.
Action stuff.
Yeah. Approval of June 12th, 2017, open session minutes. So we're deep in our packet. Everyone was here.
June 12th?
June 12th.
Yep.
Move they be approved?
Second?
We have a motion and a second to approve the June 12th open session minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Let's go down to action discussion item number 2, and if Rick could just really quickly fill us in on this everlasting struggle to get these charter changes. Go ahead, Rick. It's in the middle of your packet.
Yes, you're actually well ahead of me, but I'll summarize. This was in order to update the town's, the 10-year update on the charter, there needed to be, the legislature acted in their flurry before the end of the legislative session. Unfortunately, a minor technicality, in doing so, they acted with the caveat, along with the other legislative updates to charters all across the state and housing authorities, subject to local approval, except ours had already been locally approved. And what is being requested here in the motion in your packet, suggested by Lauren Goldberg in conjunction with the staff of Senator Keenan's office, to update our charter, is that there be a governor. The governor's office has agreed to file a bill with the language that is included. And the only thing that all that accomplishes is to essentially amend the vote to make it not subject to local approval anymore. And so the motion that's included, that's requested of this board to authorize the chairman to sign the document that's included, is designed to accomplish that. So that's what's being requested.
Because local approval already occurred.
Because, exactly,
That's-
it's already
that's the main
occurred.
thing, it already
So
occurred.
So again, you beat me to my packet, but that's essentially what all that is.
Everyone's clear on what we're doing tonight? I'll read the motion if somebody wants to move it forward, if that's all right.
I was thinking that's what the chairman of the charter committee might be here for tonight, but he's,
I move that the board vote to authorize the chairman to sign a letter to the governor in our packets requesting that he file a home rule petition on behalf of the town amending Chapter 445 of the Acts of 2016, the town's charter special legislation, by deleting Section 6, all is set forth in the attached special legislation, and further to authorize the governor and/or the general court to make changes of form only to the bill unless the Board of Selectmen, acting through its chairman, approves changes that are within the public purpose of the petition.
Motion to accept?
Second.
So a motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Wow.
it's amazing how.
We have a couple minutes before 6:35. What else can we discuss? We don't want to get involved in I-3, storage containers.
Yeah, that's gonna take a few minutes.
Really. And so is number 5. Bob, you put out forward a discussion on status of
I
center
did.
school,
I did, Mr. Chairman.
and I think that was, you had concerns about the field being separated from the school property itself?
That's the start of it. Given the fact that I've had some time since I'm recovering from surgery I had some thought process. I came up and met with Dory. One of my concerns were, well, there's several concerns, is that we had heard from the school committee that at some point in time this year that these two schools would be turned over to us. And in that thought process, looking at the center school, we have the Murphy Field, which is part of the center school, and how much of the Murphy Field, if we do want to separate, how difficult would it be to make that change? And I don't believe, based on our conversation with Dory, it's something we make a decision today and it's gone tomorrow. I think we have some work to do about making that separation, and decisions about how we're going to make that separation. Do you want to make it at the top of the hill, the lower of the hill, how you want to divide the property? I don't know if we have to have the land surveyed in order to make that happen. I know it's going to take time, so I just thought it would be proactive of the board to start thinking about what is the whole functionality of actually, if we're going to do away with the center school, if we made a decision to sell it, splitting off the Murphy Field, what are the technicalities we have to run into to make that split work for the town, both in maintaining the field, does the town want to maintain the field? You know, these are all questions we have to throw out to the board, and then what is the technical difficulties of going about doing that, what we have to do. That being said, there are some ramifications about doing away with the school. I mean, what type of pre-disposition work is the Board of Selectmen going to charge the town to do to make sure that we're splitting the school off and selling it off appropriately? Do we have to worry about any lead paint issues? Do we have to worry about
Well,
any,
that's-
you know, those things, all
Yeah,
those
but
things
that's-
have to come into
Right,
glue when we
well,
get rid of the school.
There's a committee for that.
Yeah. But I just think that to be proactive, I think the board would be wise, even though it hasn't physically been turned over to us yet, that we at least start the process of thinking about, if we're gonna split the Murphy Field away from the school, how is that gonna be done and what needs to be done to make that happen?
I'll just say one thing, and I'll open it up to the board members for discussion on that. There is no, the process is only beginning, unfortunately, for what the disposition of the two schools. It may come to the point where the center school is going to be, the town's going to hang on to it, use it for green space, and if that's the case, they wouldn't have to be separated. So I would think that we might want to hold off on, actually, maybe we could look into it and plan if it's going to happen, but I think it's kind of premature to start separating the property right now. But other board members have any comments on that?
Just maybe you give the charge to the school building, or whatever, the disposal committee, or whatever, what's the name of the committee?
School surplus.
Surplus school
land-
building.
Surplus school
Surplus,
committee. And make sure that they take that into consideration also. But I don't think, at this point, that's something we should be, I mean, Kenny's right, there might be some people, I'm one, who might think it might be worthwhile to hold on to the school and make that green space, and then you'd have green space with, up there and the lower field.
We haven't ruled anything out. It could be
No.
it could be a community center, or, and you want to keep,
Right.
you know, so I think we
I
should wait.
think the point's well taken, though. We don't want to give up Murphy Field
No, no,
if we,
right. That
if
shouldn't be
we
part
end
of
up
it.
selling the building or whatever.
Absolutely.
I would definitely want to separate it at that point.
So it's just forethought. I just
Oh,
think,
absolutely.
you know, I know we have, I apologize, I know there are committees out there looking at it. It just came to me that while we talk about it or not talk about it, it's eventually going to happen. Whether it happens in July, August, or November, it's going to come to us. Whether it comes to us through the Surplus Land Committee group, or what I believe is just showing some forethought and maybe questioning the Surplus Committee group, or maybe even meeting with them at a point in time in September to say, don't forget, we got to think about all these other things.
My hope is that every board in town meets with them and, you know, right of first refusal, I would say, do you want this property, does Park and Rec, do you want this, you know, school, do you want, you know, that sort of stuff.
Where does that committee stand?
That's actually agenda item 6, but I want to hold off on that.
Oh, okay.
If we could.
All right.
Okay, I apologize.
Nope, that's right. So next, we have a 635 Uncle Jimmy's Pizza. And we have a request for a wine and malt license. If you folks could come up and state your name and welcome.
James started.
I'm Jen Staines.
Okay,
We came before you about 11 months ago.
Absolutely.
We were opening the restaurant.
nothing but great things about it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
This is something that we've had in mind since we bought the restaurant. Nothing goes better with a slice of pizza than a cold beer.
Absolutely. So this is a public hearing, so we have to make a notice, right, vote on that first.
You have to read them.
All right, the Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry,
Okay.
will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 17th at 6:35 in the Carter Hearing Room, 500 Glennis Way, in the application of James Stoddard, DBA Uncle Jimmy's Pizza and More, 988 Bedford Street, for a wine and malt retail alcoholic beverage license. Ken Coyle, Chairman. All right, so this hearing is open. Okay, so pizza and beer, sounds great. I asked, maybe it was a dumb question, there was a point in time, if you remember long ago, when all the liquor licenses and beer and wine licenses were limited, and you could not have, there was a certain amount of people were selling them and bidding on them and fighting over them. That is no longer the case, folks?
Oh, it's still the case, but we're under the quota. We have this license is available.
Okay, so we have a license available?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
How
And
many licenses do we have?
We actually have 3 available. There's 5, we're, the
What's the
town is
total
allowed
in the
5.
town, and is beer and wine different than a liquor license?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The town is allowed 5 beer and wine retail, common vic, and 5 beer and wine wholesale. So the beer and wine wholesale, there's always a lot of need for that, but we don't, we're always at our quota. We never have one available. But the common vic, we have 3 available. Remember Pizzing's had their
I was
beer
just
and
gonna
wine,
say
they
that.
gave theirs up. Martin's
And
had
what
one.
about full liquor licenses? I know it's got nothing to do with this, but just so everyone knows how many,
Yeah, 22.
We
We're
have
at our full
22.
capacity.
and that's based on the population?
Exactly. Yep, depending on the census.
Okay.
so since you've been in operation, you haven't had beer or wine there?
Correct.
But the previous owners, I believe, did they have beer and wine there?
Not the owner
I think-
before us, but prior to him.
Way back,
Yeah.
Louis did,
Or
yeah.
when it was Louis?
Original Louis.
Okay, the original Louis, okay. It looks like everything is in order. Any questions from the board?
How long have you guys been up there now?
11 months.
11 months.
Just about. September will be a year, so.
Were you talking about doing breakfast too? When you came in? You were- Saturday
We have a breakfast
place.
restaurant in Bridgewater that I got an offer on today.
Ooh.
So once that sells, we're contemplating doing some breakfast up at Uncle Jimmy's in the morning. Small, very limited breakfast, Monday through Friday, and then maybe a fuller menu on the weekends.
Excellent, thank you. Any other
Have you
questions?
done tips training and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Yes, we already
Yep.
have it.
We already have them, yep.
Have either one of you been involved in an operation that sold beer or wine?
Not to sell. I've been a bartender for a long time,
Oh,
but
okay.
not to sell, not as an owner.
Okay.
I've been tip certified off and on for 15 years.
Sure.
There's nothing to open it up to.
Yep. All right, so I have to close the hearing first, right? Public comment?
Any public?
Any abutters, any comment on this? None? I'll make a motion to
Close the hearing.
Second?
Motion's made and second to close the hearing. All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
We approve the license?
Second?
We have a motion and second to approve the wine and malt retail license for Uncle Jimmy's Pizza on Bedford Street. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very much.
Take
Good
care.
luck.
Expect to see you all for pizza and a beer.
Continued success.
I did.
Talk to you soon.
All right, this is not a public hearing. Kristen Zanaboni, is she available yet? Would you come on up to the mic? Come on down. And if you want to give maybe a brief description of what business you're talking about, the address, and then what you're planning on doing, Kristen?
Sure, it's the Designer Diva. It's a resale consignment boutique. I was previously over on Washington Street, and I've now moved over to 171 Brockton Ave.
Brockton Ave. Okay. Inspections seem to have gone okay. Any questions or comments from the board?
How long were you in place at the Washington Street? address?
Just about 3 years before the
Oh, you were there
building
long.
almost killed me, yeah.
Was this a smaller?
Yeah, much smaller. The building over there had no insulation, the roof leaked, and
Oh,
pipes
really?
would burst, and it was horrible, so, yeah. I'm much happier where I'm at now.
Good.
Okay.
Now, are you open now, Kristen?
Yes.
You are, okay.
motion to accept and approve the article, to approve the license.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second for a used article license for designer Diva on Brockton Ave. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Thank you, congratulations.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Griffin's Dairy Committee update. I see Carrie Bates walking up to the microphone. Welcome. She's become quite the speaker.
You should have all been there last night to sing with us at the, over at the field.
Okay.
It was beautiful.
Okay, Carrie, if you can just state your name and address, please.
Carolyn C. Bates, 41 Oakland Circle.
Thank you. All right, give us the good news. Give us the update.
Okay, we do have a lot of good news. We've been working very, very hard, just about every single day. Somebody's up there doing work, mowing, whatever. But both of the north and the south sides of the parking lot have been cleared, weed whacked. Now they're at the mowing stage. And then in the center of the parking, between the two areas for parking, there's a huge amount of Japanese knotweed. And Terry Nichols was very informative to us about getting rid of it. So she cleared about half of it. And then several of us got in there and cleaned the rest of it on the committee, and with the help of Susan Weaver. So now it has to be mowed, but it has to be mowed periodically. And of course, as I said on this, the more we've cleared, the more we have to mow. And Wayne Norling has been wonderful because we've picked up a couple of discarded mowers on the side of the road, and he's been able to repair them so that we've been able to use them. And one has a bag on it and mows it very closely. So we use that primarily for the knotweed.
That's our computer guy, right? Our IT
That is your computer guy.
Small engine
He is a
repair.
multi-talented young man, or whatever. Grandfather, I think, also.
He's a young man.
So then also with this, because we were gathering so much brush from clearing, we got a special burn permit from the fire department, and they sent a fire detail up there with a fire truck, and we spent all day, and Jack Kelleher was there all day with his backhoe or whatever it is, and he was pushing stuff around. We had 2 burn piles, and we finally left there about 3:30, 4:45 that day. It was started at 8 o'clock. So that was a long day, and it worked out well. There's one pile left of debris which has to be removed. And we can take that, we'll have to see if we can get a dump truck to take it to some kind of a dump site or compost site or something like that. So, but at any rate, let's see, we also voted at our last meeting formally to name the area the Griffin Dairy Farm. And then the former golf shed has been repaired, and the committee is working with Jack Kelleher, again, Jack Kelleher, and the DBW to move it. It's going to be moved over to the community gardens so that hopefully the existing door will face into the gardens, and then it be used for storage and tools and all that kind of thing. So there's that. And then we've been contacting this soccer people, Erin Goldberg primarily, just to keep them updated on the condition of the fields that they're planning to use. And all of the fields, not all of the fields on the farm, but the soccer fields and the most westerly field and the field near the community gardens have all been mowed and hayed, baled, taken away, everything. So let's see. And that was John Chandler. He's very good, and he's just I think it was kind of a cute story, I believe, that they got so much hay off of the first 2 fields that the truck was overloaded, and I think part of it got lost on Route 58 or something like that, and they were all scrambling around trying to get the hay bales back onto the truck. So, but it's all good. So, let's see, community gardens, everybody's doing well, and all the plants are coming along nicely. There are a couple of girls in there that I've seen, that they have they've got so much produce in their garden, it's incredible. So, but they're all doing very well. And, of course, the weeds are doing well, too, so we have to all be up there. But Russ Wheatley has completed about 90% of his surveying on the north and south sides of Plymouth Street and the east and west side of Patterson Street, and he'll be going down the first field and finishing that off for surveying for our lot lines, so that we know exactly where we can put the walking path going over to the bridge. And civil engineer has been contacted concerning the plans, and his surveyor came up and did elevations, I believe today. So I don't have any other information on that other than that's occurred. Bruce Hughes made a solar presentation to us at our last, not our last meeting, the meeting before. Very interesting. And also Krista Manna on the SAGE committee is doing work with that. So I talked to her, and she's going to get back to us with whatever she finds. So we're kind of waiting to hear from her as well in that area. We are preparing requests for the CPA funds for next year, irrigation for the community gardens, electricity. In fact, I believe one of our committee members has been in contact with the town manager's office concerning who to contact, that type of thing, to find out what we need to do to get some electricity into that parking area, some lighting and that type of thing. So, let's see. Oh, one of our committee members said he would like a flagpole. It was beautiful. What a great idea. We've never even thought of that, but he came up with it. It's very exciting to have a flagpole there. And of course, some more split rail fencing. And we're going to start planting some flowers and making it look very nice. So I also want to thank you for voting in favor of our gift account. We have a wonderful donation in there, and we've already had to dip into it a little bit. So any and all donations are more than welcome. And any and all volunteers to come up and help us do some work are more than welcome. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Questions from the board?
Yes, I'm not sure if this is for you, Carrie, or more for Rick. The CPA funds that were appropriated at our town meeting for, how is that progressing?
Well, actually, I don't know about progressing. I think the signage, for instance, there's nothing until there's actually a design for a sign and something to go on that sign, there's nothing to progress. So, as an example, the committee has a name they're recommending for the grounds to be, to commemorate. That, for instance, will be what goes on that sign. I don't know who's designing the signage, Carrie. I don't know if you want to speak to that specifically, but that won't go forward, obviously, until,
But there was money appropriated for walking trails, I believe, the bridge, fencing, all that sort of thing.
Yes,
so-
money has been appropriated for the bridge, the walking trails, the fencing, various types of fencing, and the sign.
I guess my question is, do you expect that to be done this summer or before winter? or?
Hopefully before winter.
Okay. And as far as the two playing fields?
The playing field should be ready to go by the end of August,
Right.
and we're working to get the bridge done. The walking trails are another, we'd like to get the walking trail over to the bridge done as well, but the end of August is going to be come along very quickly, and so Whether that gets done, we're not sure, but at least we can mow over to it, so there is a walking path.
Right, and the Soccer Association is dealing with the actual development of the fields themselves, not the committee,
No, we're not,
not the committee.
no. We just had the man, John Chandler, mow and hay it so that the soccer people could get in there and do whatever they need to do to prepare the fields for.
So they're ready to be prepared.
Yes, I think that some work has been done on them, yeah.
And the Patterson Street, the small parking area for, handicap and emergency access parking is being taken care of by the Public Works Department on the Patterson Street side. In fact, Wednesday, we have a public safety meeting up there to discuss Patterson Street, the parking and other, what regulations we'll be seeking to deal with on Patterson Street come fall soccer season.
Thank
But
you.
as far as the expenditure of CPA funds, yes, that's, I think it's still a little premature.
I understand, I just want to make sure that it keeps progressing. and-
Yes.
Any other questions from the board? I just have one question on the solar. At some point, do you think your committee will be giving a recommendation, either thumbs up or thumbs down to solar? Is that the plan, or?
Well, that's interesting. I would say probably, I'm not sure whether it is up to our committee to give a thumbs up or a thumbs
No,
down.
recommendation.
A recommendation,
Recommendation.
recommendation, sure.
Because
We-
you've obviously been doing some homework, getting the presentations, and we have not, so, I mean, we would value your opinion in that, I would think, so.
Yeah, we're-
Because that's the way it is, right? Advisory committee, so you come before us and
Right.
give us a recommendation.
Right, and I'm glad Old Colony Planning Council's involved in that.
yes,
That's-
yes.
I think
Bruce
it's
is
very helpful.
with that, yes. Yes.
Just a suggestion, Carrie, is, another thing is that solar power lighting as opposed to electrical lighting. I mean, there's some really good, significant changes made in the last couple of years to solar power lighting, and those fields get a lot of light from the sun. So I was just wondering if there's a plausibility of looking at, rather than, not that we don't want electricity there, you need electricity there, but for lighting purposes, especially off the main drag and any place else you want to light, there's some really good advancements in solar power lighting that are not, the cost is coming down significantly. So if you could look into that while you're checking things out, you may find that there's some viable options of getting some light in there for free, just on the solar. It's not free, but the energy's free once you set it up, so, just a suggestion, that's all.
Yes, thank you. We have also talked about the motion sensor lighting, and also maybe a switch that, on a timer. So
Thank you.
again, we're kind of plodding along with that area, so.
And if you could, I had asked Rick to give us some maps of the property and what was recommended by Old Colony Planning Council. We probably have one, but maybe we can get a copy. And if we could be so kind as to maybe lay out, okay, the bridge is gonna go here, the rail is gonna go here, the fields are here. I don't know if that's all on there. I don't think all that stuff is on on the map, but we could put it out, maybe the parking lots are here. It could be helpful for us to get an idea of what the recommendations of your committee would be.
Oh, absolutely. I can just tell you off the top of my head, but if you can picture the area.
Yeah.
At Plymouth Street, we have planned a split rail fence right up at the head of the parking lot with a 14-foot gate for access for the farmers and for anyone else who might need to get in there. Also, a walking gate for the paths. Then then fencing for the community gardens, and this would be a 5-foot fence, I believe. Is that correct? 5 or 6? 5, okay. And then at Patterson Street, black chain link fencing on either side, the west side and the east side, to protect the neighbors from people going across their lawns, balls, or whatever. It's just a protection. And then also another split rail fence at Patterson Street with another 14-foot gate for access to the fields and walking trails, another gate for walking trails. And that would be on 3 sides, not just on one side.
Wow. Okay. All set? Thank you very much, Karen.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
I want to give a thanks out to all the volunteers. She didn't list them, but there's tons of volunteers and the committee members are doing a lot of work up there on their own time and dime. So,
Want to
7:04.
discuss, Ken, I don't know if we want to discuss at this meeting, number 10 on the list there, as far as the name.
Yeah, that's up to the board. We can discuss the name.
Only because if there's going to be signage, as Rick said, they need to have a name before they can do
I think I
signage.
stated my opinion when they came before us. I'm not too keen on Griffin Dairy Farm because it's not a dairy and it's not a farm, but that's my personal opinion. I like a park, you know. We can discuss it, absolutely. It's on the agenda, so.
Well, my thought was, I know you like the Griffin's Park or
Yeah.
Griffin's Farm Park, and they have, is there any way we could do some kind of a survey monkey or a survey and have the town actually take part and give us what they think the name should, give them 2 options or 3 options, and
That's a cool idea.
here you go. Tell us what you guys want. and I've seen it done in other towns where, you know, it's not a huge monumental decision here, but I think it would be something
Yeah, I
nice
think so,
to let the
yeah.
townspeople.
We have an IT guy / small
Say,
engine repair guy.
I was
gonna
gonna
say,
something
Wayne
Wayne
can do
could do.
anything.
Yeah,
Once he finishes with
and
those
they had done
lawnmowers.
that.
wait, Palumbo was the
Survey
first.
Monkey
Yeah.
when they did the business
Wayne
group.
could make
Did
a
it?
lawn.
Yeah, there was Survey Monkey.
Do we want
survey for
to,
that.
do we want to vote as a board as to what we think we would like to call it?
I have my opinion, but.
Yeah, let's hear the
Well-
opinion.
Well, I don't know, do we have the actual, we have a name from the Griffin's Dairy Committee, they'd like it
Yes.
Griffin Dairy Farm.
Yep.
I think you have Griffin's Park.
Griffin Park.
Griffin Park.
Griffin's Park.
I don't know if there's any other suggestions.
What are you thinking?
I like Griffin Park myself,
Yeah.
it's a park.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to throw my Ps and Qs in. I don't mind the Griffin Dairy Farm, but I like the Griffin Dairy Community Park. I think it's appropriate of remembering the name of the property, but also associating it
I would
with
accept
community
Griffin
park.
Community Park. I would accept
Yeah,
that.
I think that's good.
Just a thought.
Tom, you have any opinion on that? Wake up. Oh,
Huh? Wait a second, where did he go?
I don't know. Griffin Community Park? I like it.
Well, again, do you want to put it out to the public to let them?
Yeah,
I think
I
we
think
should put it out
we
to
can
the
let it go
public.
to the public.
Yeah.
I have no
Those
problem with that.
those
Can
two
have
choices,
three?
or you want to have?
Well, I think if the board is in favor of Griffin's Community
Park.
Park.
That's fine.
And Griffin's Dairy is in favor of
Griffin Dairy
Griffin's
Farm.
Dairy Farm, those should be the 2 options that we should put out to Survey Monkey.
Wow.
Or whatever they come up with.
Or anything else they want to come up with, they should be write-ins.
No, I mean, as far as a survey.
The survey
Yeah,
write-ins.
well, you know, there could be those 2 or someone else could, a third option.
Well, we have to know, because I could come up with.
No, I think the 2 options
You
are
need to
fine.
let
I'm
me
just
know.
saying, you don't have to necessarily use Survey Monkey. If Wayne comes up with some other format to let people vote, I guess that would
Oh,
be.
yeah, well,
Tom, we were talking about the naming of the Griffin Dairy Land, and.
I think we should have a third option to fill in the blank.
Did you have another name you might want to consider?
You know, someone might come up with
No,
something.
just asking.
Not me, no.
No? Okay.
Thank you.
So either Survey Monkey or whatever, and who's ever on the, you know, they can go to the website and click on, or, you know, the email that goes out to everybody.
All right, important business, 7:05.
So,
Wait
can,
a second.
We're kind of moving forward.
Not going to happen until we actually write it down, so.
we have to
That was a
take
Let me write it down.
what these options are
Right.
for
So,
us.
We have Griffin Community Park?
Griffin's Dairy Community Park?
No.
No,
dairy.
they don't want that.
Griffin
Griffin-
Community Park. And whatever
Griffin Dairy Farm, which is what the,
Griffin Dairy Farm.
Yeah.
In Griffin's Community Park. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, from the audience?
Can you include Griffin's Park, because I know some people already kind of use that too, or just
I wouldn't be opposed to that.
I'm sorry, Mr.
There's a survey
Well,
done right
there you
there. 101.
There's the monkey right there.
I didn't hear you, Mr. Buckley, I'm sorry.
No,
sir.
either one.
I think.
Thank you.
I think that's, thank you. Okay.
We don't need the survey
We have
monkey
2
now.
options that,
What do you want, 3? Do you want to include
I
Griffin
just
Park too?
want to be
or-
clear.
I don't care.
No, I think just
Two?
do the
All
2.
right, let the
The
community-
board,
Community,
consensus
it's a
of the
community
board.
garden up there, I think that's,
All right, so those 2.
yep,
Those 2.
Okay.
perfect.
Thank
Now
you.
can we do the 7:05
And
business?
then we will settle this at our next meeting,
We should,
That
yes.
sounds fair.
okay?
What the results are due
They can
then
get
by
the
then?
sign.
Yes. Okay.
I know someone in the press, maybe we can do an article about it and go to the certain website and stuff, so that'd be good. All right, 7:05, we have a request to be an associate member on the Conservation Commission. Joanne DeMarc Harding, is she here tonight? No, she is not. Conservation Commission has associate members that are spots, and we can have as many as we want.
Limited, I believe, right?
I don't think there is a number, yeah.
There's not a limitation.
But they,
'Cause they don't vote, they
they
just-
cannot vote, unlike zoning board. If someone is absent, you can appoint an associate or an alternate zoning board member. You can't do that with conservation.
So actually, the town municipal volunteer form is wrong, because it says alternate,
Oh, that's what's
Alternates.
available, is only an alternate in the conservation.
but they're not an alternate, is it?
It's actually an associate member
Associate.
Oh,
from
I see.
conservation.
Good
So,
point.
you
Yeah.
might want to get rid of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, make it, that's true, yeah, make it associate.
Yeah.
And if we do vote her, I would make her aware that she's not an alternate, she's an associate, and it's a learning curve and that sort of stuff, so. We have a motion on Joanne DeMarc Harding.
Motion to
Summer Street.
approve. Second?
Motion to appoint Joanne DeMarc Harding as an associate member. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 7:10, reappointments to the Commission on Disabilities. These are two reappointments, people that have been on the committee previously. Are these the only two openings on there? Do we know?
There will be another, if these two are appointed, there'll still be one
Be
vacancy.
one more vacancy. And I think these are people that have been on, I know that at least in one case for quite a while. Geraldine
Yes.
Carini and John Cesarini. Is either one of them here tonight? Okay. Do you have any action by the board? Any questions?
Motion to approve both.
Second both?
Motion's made and seconded to approve Geraldine Carini and John Cesarini to reappointment to the Commission on Disabilities. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Discussion on pods storage containers as permanent storage in residential areas. This is action discussion item number 3 of our agenda. You didn't supply any kind of paperwork, it's just a discussion. Oh, here it is, discussion. Discussion is a request from Alex to consider prohibiting the above being used as sheds. And I believe the town manager was asked to maybe check with some of his colleagues in surrounding towns. How'd you make out with that, Rick?
Did get some responses in writing, a couple phone calls, but there was kind of mixed results. Again, talking to town administrator types, not planners, who would be a little more familiar with their planning element, but some of them have not been successful in eliminating these types of, again, storage facilities. Conceptually, it's one of those, don't tell me what to do on my property, I guess. And I think I point to Cohasset specifically as an example of a town who has eliminated them. That has eliminated them, in general, but they're only available by special permit and only during construction projects. So, again, conceptually, that is I think, if that's the board's will in terms of what they would like to see in Abington, that might be an example of the direction.
So would this have to be
Theirs is by zoning bylaw.
zoning bylaw, so it would have to go to town meeting?
Correct.
This board cannot just do a policy. on
That's
that.
my understanding, yes.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman,
And let me interrupt you for 1 second,
Okay.
because discussion item 5 would be a zoning bylaw 2 if we discuss about use variances. So just to keep that in mind, and we might be requesting some different bylaw changes, but go ahead, Alex.
so this started, as you all know, we received a complaint regarding Vineyard Road. And so I started doing some investigation into the pods, containers. And if I may, I don't want to harp on Vineyard Road, but since that's what started this, I want to just go over. The applicant filed for a building permit to install 38 sheets of half-inch sheetrock and drop ship owner's storage trailer in backyard behind the house. The building inspector gave him a permit for R&R Sheet Rock Storage Shed, 197 Vineyard Road. So I don't consider,
What does that mean?
that means he called it, the building inspector called it a storage shed, the storage container that's back there. The inspector,
What's the sheet rock?
well, that was part of it too. It had nothing to do with it if you read
Okay, so
Rick's
it's two separate-
email from, the day after town meeting, I think that was when that came out. So, according to our bylaws, an accessory building, and it doesn't, I'm not gonna read everything here, but, an accessory building must be 10 feet off the property, blah, 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 all that, but you go from accessory building to the definition of a building, which a shed would be a building, must be resting on its own foundation. So that's one thing there. Then we go to trailers. Any vehicle which is designed primarily to be portable and is arranged into, intended, designed, a temporary, and it goes into sleeping and construction and everything else. So the applicant applied for a trailer to be dumped there, which, if you go to the chart, trailers are not allowed in any zone. So if they're calling it a trailer, it should not be allowed in any zone, and it should be removed. So that got me thinking, we need some sort of bylaw or something to, well, frankly, I don't want to see storage containers and pods in every residential yard. I don't have a problem with them if you have a fire or if you're moving or construction. I have no problem with that. To be used to drop ship a shipping container and call it a shed in a residential area should not be allowed. And according to our zoning bylaws, it's not allowed. And the follow-up letter from you, Rick, said that the neighbor could appeal Marshall's decision to the town council,
No,
I'm sorry, to the zoning board, and we can certainly have town council review it at that time as well. I think town council needs to review this now, not wait for a neighbor to file with zoning. So first of all, I'd like town council to review that, and I would like some opinions with the board on what they'd think we should do with storage containers, pods, and like I said, I have no problem if you're moving or construction or you have a fire or something like that, but I think it should be a permit for a specific amount of time, 30 days, 60 days, or whatever, and I don't think they should be used as storage sheds, as this one is, in my opinion, illegally.
Members?
One of my questions is that if we go forward, is there a grandfather clause for people that have them already? Would we have to vote on whether or not they had to remove them now after we make this change, or do they get to keep it if they have it already and then we have to deal with the future? Or is it something that we're gonna actually look at a legal opinion to remove them completely from the town wherever they are, in existence or not, and give somebody 30, 60, 90, 120 days or a year to empty it out and get rid of it and get it off their property?
Well-
Or what are we gonna do with that? Because I believe there's more than one container on a piece of property in this town.
Yeah, well, I agree, and I think, though, and that's why I want town council to look at it, if town council reviews our bylaws and sees that they are not allowed now, then they would have to be removed. But I'd have no problem going forward that, well, first of all, no, I don't think they should be grandfathered anyway, because I think they're illegal. But I would have no problem 30, 60, 90 days or whatever for someone to get a permit, build a shed, move the stuff in there and remove it. I just think we're setting a bad precedent here if we allow people to call a storage container a shed, because it's not a shed.
Anybody else?
I agree with you.
Thank you.
There is a trend, and anybody who goes on Pinterest or any of these sites, to convert storage containers into housing and different sheds and stuff like that, man caves, that sort of stuff. But I agree with you too. My parents, and he probably knows this, but in Hanson, they had 2 storage containers in their front yard, and it was an eyesore. I mean, and I agree with you 100%. And if you want to look up there, I did find a couple towns that I think have in the bylaws, Sturbridge and Douglas, both have but Douglas was a recent Article 7 at one of their town meetings where they're working to try to get rid of some storage containers. I'm a little confused though by the wording pods, because I think of pods, I think of, those things
I
you can.
think pod is a brand name.
Right.
You see it says pod on the
Right,
side. Yeah.
and I would be okay with approving those on a temporary basis.
On a temporary,
People- yeah.
I'd be okay with the shipping container on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
If somebody's moving and using that for moving, but it shouldn't be used as a shed.
Yeah, I don't think this is.
So I would like town council to look into that permit and look into it. And if it needs to be removed, I think it should be removed. And then whatever we need to do going forward, and I'm assuming it's gonna be at next town meeting, to have an article to change it.
And you let the voters decide whether or not
Exactly.
that's something they want for the
Exactly.
town. I think that's all.
Mr. Riley?
Just quickly, Sean Riley, 26 Russell Lane. I agree with everything you're saying, just two thoughts. If town council says they're illegal, then great. You have some authority to prevent it from happening in the future. But if not, we have to implement something. I would just suggest that we ask town council to consider whether the zoning bylaw or a general bylaw might be better. Because if it's a zoning bylaw, you might run into grandfathering issues. A general bylaw, you won't, and you can give people time to remove them. Just something to consider. And also, we'll get into the wording later, but not to just prohibit them specifically from residential districts, but perhaps from residential districts or property being used for residential purposes.
That's exactly what Rick and I had.
That's it. Thanks.
Residential uses.
So how does the board want to proceed with this? Do they want to have the subcommittee meet with, who's in charge? Actually, there's a bylaw committee, correct? Is there a bylaw committee in place? There is not one.
There's a sign by law, that's a
That's just a
different issue.
sign.
It's signed by law.
Well, why don't we
will
see what
eventually.
town council says?
I-
And if
yes,
town
that's
council says we can do a
sufficient, yeah.
policy, which I'm not sure we can, then we could do that. If not, then it would have to go to the next town meeting. But I'd like town council to review the whole thing.
Is that agreeable to the board?
I don't disagree. I'm just gonna go back on the field that if the people in the town that have them and they were never allowed to have them, how did they get them? And did they just drop them there and never apply to the town or whatever?
Probably most of them.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I just think, I don't know what that means to the town and how that how it affects the town, but if I wasn't to say that in this savvy time of getting lawyers to argue opinions of why I should and shouldn't be able to have it, it's not opening a can of worms. I have no problem with it. I agree with everything that's been said. I just think that I am also gonna ask, I agree with you, Alex, we need to get a full legal review of what
Right.
all that impact's gonna mean to us if we go ahead and go forward with that.
Well,
How it impacts people who
Luckily,
may
town
have them on the
council was here
property.
tonight, so he heard it.
All right.
Okay?
Do we wanna make a motion to look into that, or do we just
I
let
don't
it go?
think we need a motion, do we? No.
I think your instruction is clear.
Are we good with that?
So we'll discuss it further at a future meeting.
Thank you, Alex.
All right, discussion item number 5, discussion of use variances. Mr. Burbine asked for this to be put on the agenda.
Once again,
Is it time to eliminate use variances in Abington? And I'm going to plead
The 5th?
ignorance on this. I'm really not sure exactly, so maybe you experts as far as different zoning boards and stuff can tell me exactly what a use variance is. And I believe the problem is when you make a use variance, it's permanent. Is that what the problem is?
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
So
Mr.
there's a zoning table of uses that the town has adopted.
Yes.
And depending on what zone you're in, there are certain uses that are allowed, there are certain uses that are not allowed, there are certain uses that may be allowed with a special permit. I think it's time that we take a look at whether or not we should allow, which we do now, allow uses with a variance. Most towns, and I think if you look at the presentation here, most towns that I looked at do not allow for use variances. They allow for variances for setbacks, dimensional variances, but not for uses. And I think, as an example, if you live in an R30 zone, actually similar to what we're just talking about, if you live in an R30 zone, which allows for if you take a look at the use table, and you wanted to put up a 3-family, or even a two-family, one two-family or one duplex, that's not allowed in R30 zone. Except if you get a variance, it is. So the town adopts the bylaw saying, these are the uses that are prohibited, but a board of 3 members on the zoning board can say,
change it.
we can change it, and it kind of starts to eliminate the whole purpose of the zone.
So what you're saying is, this is, you know,
I don't think, my opinion, I don't think it's something that Abington should be granting as use variances. I don't think it's.
so this zoning chart is the way it's gonna be.
Yes,
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 okay.
for uses, yes.
For now.
For uses,
For
but
the
they
uses.
could still get a setback or a side
Side
yard
yard
variance to
yes.
put a deck on
Absolutely,
or
yes.
something like that.
Yeah, yeah. But I just think it's something that, what I would like to see is maybe do some research, go back, look at 3 to 5 years back, see how many use variances have been applied for. I'll bet you'll see quite a few. How many use variances have actually been granted? I'll bet you'll see quite a few. And do that sort of research, then maybe get the zoning board and the planning board and us to sit down and see whether or not this is something that they think is in the best interest of the town, is to maybe.
This table you gave us is not the entire table. This is
No, that's just for,
for
yeah,
residential.
exactly, yes. That's just the residential use.
You're also talking about businesses for use variances for businesses
Yeah.
also, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, there are some towns, if you look at the presentation, there are some towns that allow for limited use variances in certain zones. So in residential zones, there's no use variances, but in certain business zones, they do allow for use variances. That's kind of a splitting the baby sort of an idea, but I think it's something we should definitely look at. I just think the town is not the same town it was 30 or 40 years ago. It's much more congested. We've got, I think, potential here for zones to start to disappear, R30s, R20s, where you have 2, 3-family houses which are not supposed to be allowed. And the other thing that impacts is the budget of the town. It impacts police, fire, schools. If it was originally zoned for a single family and now all of a sudden you've got a 3-family or a 2-family, those are things that you have to consider. So I just think it's
When you first brought up the idea of use variances, I thought it was mostly geared towards like businesses, but seems like you're more concerned about.
I'm concerned about both. I'm concerned about both, yeah. I think you adopt this bylaw with these uses in place, and then all of a sudden, as I said, 3 members of the board, of the zoning board can say, well, we're going to grant a variance. And there are, standards that they're supposed to follow, but it is still 3 members who are able to derogate from the whole purpose of the zoning bylaw.
And it appears that a lot of towns are going this route also.
Well, based on what if you look at what I've found out here, I did look at a number of them. I think there were, 20-something, 30-something that I looked at. 24 don't allow use variances, 3 allow them, but just restricted, and 5 that allow use variances, Abington being one of them.
So this would have to be a zoning change?
This would have to be a zone, yeah, and again, if the board thinks it's something we should do, it's going to be presented to town meeting, and if the town thinks it's wise to do it, they would do it, and if they don't, then, but I think it's something we should
Well,
look at.
I have a problem with no-use variance, especially in a business district, because, and I'll give you an example, I don't know all the details, but I heard that a landscaper applied to put a business up where the old drive-in is, which is technology development, or whatever it's called. So chances are Yahoo and Google's not going to pick Abington. So that district, we all know why that district was created years ago anyway, just to stop the transfer. But what's wrong with that vacant land sitting there for the last 20 years, and someone wants to go in and do a landscaping business here? He was shut down, and he's not moving to Abington now. So I think in that case, especially in businesses, I think we appoint a zoning board, and it should be up to the zoning board whether or not, whether or not they grant a variance. I have no problem with looking into residential, but I kind of have a problem with restricting all zoning use variances in a business district. And I understand the argument on both sides, but Abington just lost a potential business here in Abington because...
Just on that point, Alex, maybe that would have been a good business for up there, but if not, but if it wasn't zoned properly, then maybe you'd have to change the zoning. I mean,
Right.
we should take a look at, the zoning map shouldn't
Well-
sit stagnant forever.
No, and
either.
I
It's something
agree, I
that should be
definitely think we should look
reviewed on
at, change that
And the
zoning.
zoning can change.
Yeah,
Yes,
I definitely
yes.
think we should look into that at the next town meeting, too.
yeah.
But that's my opinion on the use variances. And I would like to see how many were applied for the last
I-
5
I
years,
would too.
and I don't know who can get that information to us, but,
Well, the
Well, I can
zoning of the
take-
bylaws, either one of them should either give us.
Oh, you can just take a look at the minutes, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I can do it.
But
It's
that,
just
those
a-
boards should be able to tell you how many different
Yeah.
applications they've dealt with.
Exactly,
yeah.
exactly.
So if someone could get us that,
Yeah.
for a future meeting.
Without too much, and I don't, I'm a rookie in this one. If we did not allow for use variance, whether we did it on the business level or residential level, does that mean this table is fixed and stays exactly the way it is, and there's no change to what it says, why, no, or a special project? If you
Special permit, yes.
Special permit? So does the
No
table?
means no, basically, is what it means.
Okay, but a special permit means special permit, and there's why
Which it
mean
does
why?
now.
And would there be a need for, and who would be the board that would go through and maybe update the table to be the SPs, Ys, and Os again? Or do we just leave it the way it is?
Well, I think that's the planning boards probably would take a look at they should review the zoning table.
So if
the zoning
we made the
bylaws.
decision to pass the rule, to go to the town to say we want to do away with variances,
Use variance.
use variances, prior to that vote, should this table be reviewed and updated
It
so
may
that
be.
people understand what they're
I
voting
think
on
that's
when
why
they
you
vote
wanna
on
bring
it?
That's why you want to
Maybe,
bring in a planning board and discuss this with them.
Maybe some of them may be changed to a special permit.
I-
When you say
Please.
special, when you say special permit, is that a variance?
No,
That's
just
not use
special.
variance, it's something
It's
different.
a lot easier, really, to get a special permit.
Standard is lower to get a special permit than it is to get a variance.
You had your
It's
hand up.
supposed to be.
Who, you the chairman?
I'm sorry, I apologize.
You had your hand up?
I'm just practicing.
Are you proposing like a subcommittee to discuss it with the planning board and the zoning board?
No, I don't,
I
I'd rather have
Didn't mean
I think, not a,
to offend.
no,
As a
yeah,
full meeting or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine,
Yeah.
I just wanted to check.
Yeah.
All right.
Sean?
Sean Riley, 26 for it. I'm not opposed to this. It's a debate that goes on in a lot of towns. But I wanted to follow up on, I guess, what Bob was saying. I think if you're going to take away the use variance, then you have to update the chart at the same time. I think what you find in towns that don't have use variances is that chart is different than ours, that they have a lot more uses allowed by right with a Y, a yes, and uses allowed by special permit with an SP. And they have fewer no's because, as you said, no means no. So you might have, as an example, in our updated one, it might say no for transfer stations everywhere, if that's what you want. But you certainly don't want to say no to offices in the commercial districts or different places. The use variance is not permanent. It is granted and it can be used, but if that use is abandoned, in fact, I was at that hearing, I didn't represent the gentleman with the landscaping. It came up, well, if we give you this use variance and your landscaping company moves into the old drive and it's permanent. No, it's not, because he could sell to Google later, or he could close his business and move, and that goes away, that use goes away. Someone else would have to reapply down the road. The use variance, yes, it's true that 3 members of a zoning board can grant use variance, but you also need to know that 1 member can deny it. If you get 1 no vote, they don't get it. And there's been use variances, like that one, that was denied. But there's also been use variances in this town that have helped us, especially with business. That's what I'm most concerned about, is the business use. Target would not be here without a use variance. The old town hall at 33 Randolph Street, the old church, when the town hall moved out of there, it was either going to have to be used as a church, or the only thing allowed there really was a single-family house. Someone would buy it, rip it down, and put a house up on 139, which wasn't going to happen. They asked for a use variance to renovate it and save the building and convert it to apartments, and it's beautiful. And that was a use variance. So there are some times when it's a good thing for the zoning board, has to be a unanimous decision to approve a use variance for, specific applications, and only one can say no, and it blows up. The town of Rockland had a use variance. They got rid of it a few years ago. They just put it back in about 2 years ago. So I think you mentioned, Rockland took it away and quickly put it right back in because it locked them in on their thing, and they had no wiggle room. If they had a business come in and said, I'd like to locate here, for example, we had an issue where, parts of Route 18 are actually zoned residential. If a business came into Abington and said, I'd like to put my business here and take down this old house, you need a use variance to do that right now, the way the zoning map is. So it's all interrelated. So I just want to, again, I don't oppose it, we can look at it. I think you'll find that they're giving away not very often. But they can be a good use for planning in the future, because if a company like Target came to Abington and said, I'd like to locate on Route 123, but I need a use variance, and you said, I don't have one, you know what we'll do is we'll hold a town meeting, and we'll come back and rewrite that area of the zoning bylaw, come back next year, Target would say, no thanks, that's not on our schedule, we're gonna go to our secondary, which they did have a secondary location to go to, and I think it was Dayton or Rehoboth. So, don't wanna throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I have no problem looking at it, because it is something that should be looked at occasionally. But the use chart would have to be changed at the same time if the use variance went away. Thanks.
So, again, sort of clarification, if we were to relook at the zoning area of Abington and how it's been zoned, is that something we ask the planning board or zoning board to come back with
I would say that's
recommendations?
what the planning
And then
board
we
should be.
make decisions,
Yes, that
or?
should be the planning board.
I'm just asking, I don't know, so, okay.
Planning board has to have a public hearing for any change from zoning map or zoning bylaw before it goes to town meeting.
Thank you very much.
One way or another gets to that.
Thank you very much. Just trying to understand the whole process.
You guys can suggest it. Anybody can suggest a change, but the planning board has to hear.
Yes, thank you very much, I appreciate it. Thank you, Sean.
And so what are your thoughts, Andy?
Well, I'll try to get together that information if you want, and bring it
Yeah,
back to the next
we can
meeting.
get
and, yeah.
last 5 years,
Yeah.
and look at that, and then set up a meeting with planning and
Yeah.
zoning.
I think it's definitely something we should be looking into,
Yeah.
the whole kit and caboodle, like Sean said, you know.
Well, I think it should be reviewed every 2 years.
and the
Yeah,
zoning
I'm not
map.
sure the last time it was.
Yeah.
Now, do they hire firms to do that sort of work, like the zoning maps, or do they just do it themselves in-house?
Who did the last zoning map?
We have a town planner.
Planner,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That was a good one.
But they do it themselves.
Consultants would be
Yeah.
private
Could bring it.
consultants.
That might be something to look
Yeah.
into.
So let's get the information,
Yeah.
then we'll discuss it, and then bring the boards and go from there. There's plenty of time to get it on next year.
Discussion on surplus school building committee and surplus land committee. I brought this up a year ago, and we started work on it, but it's getting a little stagnant, and time, it's not running out, but, you know, the schools are my big focus, because they're gonna become, there are now, actually, when you think about it. School building committee was made, the surplus school building committee, we voted to have, remember the Board of Selectmen, 2 residents at large, a commercial realtor and a commercial developer. So far, we have Brian and Jared Driscoll, who's been appointed, and Wendy Happel have been appointed. I'm assuming those are our 2 residents at large. I don't know if we have to loosen up the criteria, or really push and advertise to try to get a realtor and a developer, or change our thinking on that. I know we did have,
Abington, Business Group.
we had an applicant, but she didn't fall into the realtor or developer. She's actually in a butter, or very a close neighbor to one of those, so got her on hold. So it's the board, I'd like to get started on these committees, you know, meeting.
It needs to get started
Well,
already, because
then, I think
the
maybe
town's
we
not
do
responsible for the
change-
buildings and.
Change our requirements and
Just
just get a board
get it
going and,
Exactly.
yeah.
So just, you know, that may require a vote of the board to change the makeup, so get rid of the commercial realtor, commercial developer, and put on the town website, we need 2 more applicants to get this.
Is that what we need to?
Well, 1, right? Because you had
Well,
one
we need-
member of the Board of Selectmen.
1 member of the Board of Selectmen, a commercial realtor, and a commercial developer, so we need 2 more people.
How many is that going to get you, 6?
5?
It'll be 5 total.
2?
The Wendy Happel and the fireman,
Jared.
selectmen, and then 2 more.
Okay.
So we need 2 more people, so I'll entertain a motion to eliminate the criteria for, and just welcome anyone that's interested.
Second?
Motion is made and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Can we put that on the website tomorrow? You know,
So hopefully at the
advertise it.
next meeting, we have,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Applicants.
and we do have 1 applicant now that
Right.
might be interested, so we'd like to get that ball rolling.
I'll
Who's the member-
volunteer.
Who's a member on the Board of Selectmen?
I don't think we voted there yet, have
we
we?
haven't yet.
So we can do it at
at the
that
next
meeting too? All right, that's cool. Thank you so much. And as far as the surplus land committee goes, I don't know how the board, we voted to declare them surplus at the last town meeting, those portions, correct? And now they're surplus. Do we want to act on it, or do we want to bring, that committee now is only 3 members. It's myself and Jim Dombrowski and Wendy Happel, and there was another representative from the school committee, but she's not on the school committee anymore, so I'm assuming that her.
So maybe we should get the list again of what has been declared surplus.
Yep.
Have the board take a look at it.
Yeah, I think
see
that
what-
would be a
see if
good
we have
discussion
some-
item next time.
Can we do that, the surplus land, because...
What was declared surplus at town meeting.
My recommendation is take anything that looks like it might be conservation, and just give it to them and say, you know, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah.
All right. So that was easy.
And if we decide we want to do an auction.
And we can do a portion of this, portion of that, you know, that sort of stuff. All right, town manager's report.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, a couple of brief things. First, the Finance Committee completed its FY17 business this past Wednesday with some final transfers and to balance the books, some very minor adjustments. And in doing so, they also made their, Mr. Sala was re-elected chairman for the coming fiscal year, and Mike Platty was elected vice chairman for the coming year. And as you have all heard, the state budget was finally adopted for FY18. The local aid package that was adopted did affect Abington ever so slightly from what we had anticipated in the budget process. Was about a net negative of about a little over $7,000, so it did not affect us all that much from what we anticipated, so we were happy to see that. So, and Route 18, the bid opening that had been planned in February was delayed until near the end of June, and the low bidder was the Gioso company, and Senator Keenan's office was tracking that for us, as well as the contracting process, and they did commit that they would try to provide us with a formal update. When they had finally everything was put together, they have told us that they expect that the construction start would be approximately Labor Day, but we haven't got a formal update yet from them, but they said they would be try to get us something as soon as possible.
So that probably answers the question, what Gioso's doing across from the old Benedetti, preparing the staging area?
Well, yeah, we haven't, yes, well, whether there's a contract in place yet, we haven't got word there's an actual contract in place, but that would suggest there may be a contract, though. So, and as the gas main in front of West Abington Hall was capped on Thursday, this past Thursday, and I have spoken to the scouts, and they are throughout the organization having conversation about who is best to be dealing with our office. I did talk to the contact Mr. Manning had given to me, but they are looking to perhaps get in the building one last time this coming week, and I know Ken wanted to get in there too, so we'll be coordinating that prior to the demolition, which should probably be as early as the end of the month here now, so, so, that is all.
I'd like to remind the members of the board to, we have a town manager evaluation due, and I know that one member has done it. Bob has plenty of time on his hands in the next couple of weeks to do his evaluation.
I didn't even, okay. You have a packet for that?
Public comments.
I remember getting it.
Mr. Buckley is approaching the stage.
We're right on time.
Okay.
Yeah, no. John Buckley, 333 Colonel Hunt Drive.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I came up to the town office a couple of weeks ago for some business at the town, and I was appalled at the appearance of the grounds, the town hall and the library.
Noticed that tonight.
You got weeds growing up between the commemorative bricks, you got weeds growing in the parking lot, you got dead trees out there that should have been removed a long time ago. You got weeds, probably more weeds than grass, and the landscaping closest to the building on both the library and the town hall is in dire need of work. You have a multi-million-dollar investment here in the two buildings, and the appearance of the site is appalling. And I know that down the street, we're going to have a brand-new high school that I assume will be a gem in the town, appearance-wise. and you get beyond that, the bridge there and into this section where the library and the town hall are, and it just needs some professional landscape work, and I would ask the board to certainly consider the fact that they need to hire a landscape architect or a landscape company to bring the site up to snuff. I think the parking lot probably needs to be not resurfaced, but certainly needs a coating on it, and relined, and just to improve the appearance of the site would be of great benefit to the aesthetics of the town and to a better quality of life in the town. That was the issue that precipitated my appearance here tonight, and I thought the meeting was last Monday, so in the meantime, I added a few other things to
Lucky yes.
to the back of the envelope, and I've always wondered over the last few years why the town hall, number one, is closed on Friday afternoons. I thought that was a time when we were facing fiscal constraints and we didn't have people who could work or didn't have the time to get the job done. And related to that, all of us who have served in either elected or appointed political office are, by the nomenclature, public servants. And it would seem to me that in an effort to serve the public, it might be nice to have evening hours, maybe once a week for some of the town offices, be it the building department, tax collector's office, town clerk's office, and in essence, serve the community. The other point, I've lost track of the status of the designation of the town as a green community. I don't know where we are on that, do you?
I think it was a,
Yes.
oh, go ahead.
Shall I? I'll do my best. Well, obviously, one of the major keys is having passed the, have adopted,
Stretch code.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, the stretch code. But we have engaged the Old Colony Planning Council to help us with an inventory, updating our appropriate policies. We have to update our inventory, our energy, do an energy audit once again. It's been, I think, about 5 or 6 years since the town has done the appropriate energy audit and create an energy savings plan to cut the appropriate energy savings to apply to the state for green community status. But we've achieved most of the criteria. But again, we have, working with Old Colony Planning Council to submit the application to the green community, to the state to achieve green community status, but achieving adoption of the stretch code was the last major hurdle that we needed town meeting assistance with. So we're getting close, but there are some internal policies, for instance, adopting a policy on fuel efficiency vehicles, both by the school administration as well as internally here on the town hall side. But there are some bureaucratic steps we have to do internally before we can apply, but that should be done this fall.
The other thing we did too was apply for the grant. We applied for grant funds
Yeah.
to help us with this
To help
process.
pay for.
Yes.
Yes.
That, I raise that point because it seems that it's been a long time coming, and other communities have adopted it over the past several years. A couple of items that I had on the list have been addressed tonight. One was the charter legislation to put the charter finally in place. And the second one was an update on Route 18. But a couple of other issues very quickly, gentlemen. I go down Bank Street, and there's a vacant building there that belongs to the water department. If I lived in that neighborhood, I would have been up here at this board 15 times. You get weeds growing out of the gutters, the building is a disgrace, the lot is a disgrace, and I don't know why the Board of Selectmen can't tell the Water Commission representatives from the Abington, on the Abington-Rockland Water District, to remove the building. I mean,
I think it's our
It's
building
one of the
now.
buildings that
Surplus
was
land.
turned over to us as a surplus land committee at town meeting, and that's one of the things we're gonna be
At our next-
discussing,
our
what to
next
do with
agenda,
that, the
yeah.
next agenda.
but it's just an eyesore to that neighborhood, and if I lived in that neighborhood, I
I'm
would
not sure it's a good idea
very
to tear it
unhappy, and
down
I'm
because
sure all of you
someone
have
may
gone by it at different
wanna buy
times and
it,
seen
fix
it,
it up
and
and
it's
use it for
deteriorating every day as we
But I don't see a problem with,
That might be a value
if
for
someone
as a
could get down there
sales.
and maybe
and the
clean it
water
up a
department
little
remove
bit.
it themselves. But going further on down Summer Street, there's I think it's Abington Auto Repair opposite the sewer department building there. Do they have a junkyard license?
I don't know what they got. They got some kind of license, right?
I believe they have a class 2 used car license and an auto repair license.
Because if you go by there, and I'm sure you have, and take a look at it, they have more junk cars in that yard than cars they're working on. It has to be in violation of their license. Excuse me.
Should the building inspector check that out? You can't have junk cars, right? Unregistered cars? Unless they're for sale.
As you speak of a Class 2 license, one of the changes in the town bylaws that were adopted a couple of years ago was when they apply for a Class 2 license, now they have to come up with some sort of description of how they can improve aesthetically the property with green space,
Oh, that's correct.
which is another. On the other side of the tracks, the senior center, a friend of mine who's on the Council of Aging, I asked him how the roof was coming along, because I know they had problems with the roof. He said, it's a great roof until it rains, and it leaks. But in conjunction with the easement that Glenn LaPointe is looking for to get to Summer Street, it would seem to me that part of any quid pro quo would be that the roof would be replaced, and on the roof would be solar panels. Because that building is in the sunlight. Every minute it seems the sun is out. It's just out there by itself, and it's a great opportunity to use solar panels on that roof when the roof is replaced. And that should be part of, I would hope, of discussions with the granting of an easement. Now, one last point, and I'm not sure how you can address that, but there are residences or properties in the town that have been taken back by banks in the foreclosure procedure. One of them happens to be at 312 Colonel Hunt Drive. And I don't know what the legal terminology is, but maybe attractive nuisance. It is in deplorable shape. It would seem to me that if a letter from the Board of Selectmen or a visit from the town manager or one of the members of the Board of Selectmen to the bank that took the property back to at least maintain the property in reasonable fashion would be a great help to that neighborhood. I'm sure there are other neighborhoods in town, too.
I think that wouldn't be a bad thing for the board to look into. I know other towns, and Brockton has a policy now that for bank-owned property, that it must be maintained, or the city will go in and clean it up somewhat, and then
Send them the bill.
charge them or lien it
Not a
before
bad
they
idea.
can do it. So I definitely think that's something we should look into.
Thank you for your time, gentlemen.
A couple of
Thank you,
your
sir.
other points, Mr. Buckley. We have curbing coming for here as part of the Community Preservation Act. So I agree with you 100%. I've been saying that for a while, that we need some work out here. I don't know what we have in the budget, a few $1,000s to get a landscaper in here to mulch and edge and clean it up. Or a resident brought this up to me, and he happens to be a landscaper, that if we could maybe notify the landscapers around or whatever, and if someone wanted to maintain it and put their sign out, maintained by Joe's Landscaping, for this season, and then next year if another one wanted to do it, I don't know how that would work, but I think there are some landscape companies out there that would probably do it, as long as their sign was out there.
Advertising, yeah.
I think it's a
I
great
mean,
idea.
much like the islands.
We have an adopt an island program.
Right.
We
already.
do. So let's adopt the town hall.
Adopt the
Oh,
And the library.
and- yeah, and others.
And the library.
Library,
You do have to be careful with
Legality.
procurement and all that
ethical
stuff, right?
issues, too.
But it seemed to me that for this complex of the library and the town hall, it would be advantageous to put out to bid a contract for a landscape
I agree
person to
with you.
bid on to maintain it. And I don't fault the DPW for
No,
they have a lot
everything's falling on the
of
DPW
territory to
more
cover.
and more.
They just can't get it done.
Right.
But this just looks terrible. And while you raise that question, I would hope that there are some plans for the land that the town just bought down the other end of Glenavich Way, so that doesn't become an eyesore as it comes into the complex of the new high school.
We talked about that in our last meeting.
You should have stayed on the Community Preservation Committee one more year. You gotta get all this stuff straightened out.
I did my stint there. Thank you very much.
The other issue is evening hours. Several towns around have evening hours where you can go in and pull a building permit. I know it's not gonna be popular with the employees, but.
I think it's a union issue, unfortunately.
Well, it's also a financial issue. I mean, you have to pay staff. Staff doesn't just show up. They don't volunteer their time. And the intent of having a more active website was so that people can do more online business. Now, obviously, people can't pull a building permit online. There are there are activities you can't do online. You have to physically be available at town hall to do do a lot of activities, so.
Yeah, but there are a lot of towns, Rick, that are open, say, on Monday night. I've worked
Yes.
for a couple where they
Right.
open
Yes,
on
there
a
are.
Monday, they close on a Friday,
Exactly.
and every department is working until 7 o'clock.
Yes.
But, you know, it's taken care of with the Friday that they get out at 12.
No, I understand that, but but again, we would have to add staff hours in our budget process, that's correct, yes.
You can have flexible hours, you don't have to, that doesn't affect your budget. If somebody's gonna work in the evening till 8 o'clock, they come in at noontime.
I think we tried to negotiate that.
We
in the
already
last-
have a 12:30 close on Friday. We already have that.
Yeah, I don't know why that begs the question of why that still happens.
Because the staff gets paid for 32 hours a week.
Right, 32 instead of 38.
Because that was cut several years ago during tough fiscal times to avoid layoffs, that the staff time was cut. That's what happened. I'm not sure how many years ago, Dory, that was, so.
Maybe 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Long time.
It was-
I think it's an issue that should be revisited as to why the town office is closed on Friday afternoon and why there aren't evening hours to accommodate the public.
Well, we would have to add budget.
I understand that,
That
but it's
was
an issue
fairly-
that should be revisited,
No,
whether it has a monetary consideration or a public service consideration, which is higher.
Yeah, well, no, understood, yes.
I agree. A night a week? Absolutely.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Dory, you mentioned that grants for the green community and stuff, but somebody posted something on Facebook recently about the Rockland Abington Rail Trail Grant. Could you give us an update on that?
The town of Abington, along with the town of Rockland, applied for a grant to come join the two towns and have the rail trails cleaned and paved. And speaking with the town of Rockland recently, they expect that we will get the award and will probably be before the end of this month. We should know very, very soon. And it looks good that we'll be getting that grant, which would be terrific.
Great.
And if I can say, for the 4 years I've been here as town manager, there are many, many staff people that are here, at least late, good period of the time, Friday afternoons, department heads. And I will also say that I haven't had a single citizen ask for nighttime or Friday hours.
Well, then I'll start now. I'd like to have one night a week where people.
I'm
can
just
come
saying,
in.
there hasn't been a call for that, so,
Well, it hasn't because we don't have it.
Yeah.
But lots of other towns are doing it, and there must be a reason they're doing it.
well, I was, and again, the 17 years in Carver, we had nighttime hours, and it was a ghost town. So I have no problem with it, but I can just tell you that, for instance, here it would be Monday nights, the same nights that most boards and committees meet. And, I'm going to just tell you from personal experience, there's not a lot of the public that shows up. And you are paying staff time. And it's just purely a budgetary issue. It's a matter of, is the budget money worth the service that the public gets for that money? And, it's really that simple.
Well, like Jack said, I mean, possibly do comp time, For example, if the town clerk wanted to be here 2 extra hours on Monday night, and the public knows that, Barbara could handle, come in early that day or whatever. So I think it's something that,
We can consider it. I'm not saying it's a
To
bad
consider.
idea, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that, it has to be consistent. Comp time is a tough way, because offices are either gonna be open or they're not. It can't be hit or miss. It
but
has to
when
be-
Russ
people
Forsberg
can-
was the part-time building inspector, he was here nights, and he had a line out there some nights for permits. So someone wants to do a shed in their house, they don't have to take the day off from work to come up here and do that. Russ was here at least several nights a week and issuing permits. And I think that would happen again. So I definitely think it's something to consider.
And as far as the easement by the senior center, that's one of the reasons why we push to have us in the negotiations for.
Right.
That's a.
Yeah, I
And
think we,
It has to be.
And the solar
That's
panels
gotta be a
might be a good
procurement.
idea to investigate too.
That's part of the legal process.
right.
Yeah.
And we haven't
Has to
heard
happen.
from them.
Well, there's been some issues with the assessor's value, the issue of the value of the easement. So that's dealing with, the assessing department is dealing with that at the moment.
If the senior center has a roof leak, that's an active known roof leak, is there any way we can do a temporary patch?
Yes, we deal with those issues on a daily
I
basis.
thought so. I
Yes.
kind of figured that would be logical,
Yes,
you know. I didn't think it was a big deal to go up there.
yeah,
Not that I can go do it, but
right,
don't put a ladder in front of me because I'll climb up and do it.
right.
All right, anything else from the board? Public comment? None. I will entertain a motion to go into executive session for the purposes of annual litigation update and not to return to open session.
Motion to
And
enter,
I also suggest if you look at, for the purposes listed on the agenda, and at the bottom of that, I think there's also
Oh,
commentary
I did
about
not know that. There's,
collective bargaining, if you might want
the
to.
next session will be held in accordance with, to discuss collective bargaining strategy with respect to the police union, as an open session will have a detrimental effect on the town's bargaining position. So that's a part of my motion also.
So move.
second?
As it may have,
So this is,
Detrimental effect on the town.
yes.
Yeah, I said that.
Litigation as well.
I knew that.
Oh, okay.
Bargaining decision and litigation.
Litigation and bargaining position.
Thank you.
That's my amended motions.
So moved again.
Motion's made
Second.
and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, Tom?
Aye.
Alex?
yes.
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 Bob? Yes.
And not to reconvene.
I said that before, but yes, not to reconvene.
Yes.
You can toss that better.